David Warfel, let me introduce you. Thank you very much for being so gracious to give us your time this evening. David's a multidisciplinary lighting designer. He has a large practice called Light Can Help You in Madison, Wisconsin, in the United States of America. Our test run yesterday was really enjoyable, learning more about each other. So I'm sure you're going to be enthralled with his presentation. But it's important that I also tell you something about David. David is one of those overly sensitive, marginally materialistic, pseudo tree-hugging Midwestern farm boy turned lighting designer. He's been either lucky, talented, or wealthy enough to land design gigs from New York, Carnegie Hall, to Las Vegas, Luxor, and MGM Grand casinos, from Chicago's Hyde Park Arts Center and Museum of Science and Industry to residential and hospitality projects in a dozen states, and from schools and churches to multiple Royal Caribbean cruise ships. But judging from the old Honda in his driveway, it isn't about personal wealth. David finally figured out what to do with his life when he hit his 40s, and he bought a foam mattress online. It was so easy to spend thousands without leaving his office that he wondered, why couldn't you get lighting design in the same way? So he started Light Can Help You. And his team now, and a substantial team at that, designs residential and hospitality projects nationwide and beyond. David's work and writing have been featured in lots of places that no one could find without Google. Lighting designer, fine home building, designing lighting in Sound America, Lighting Australia, lighting design and application, live design, theatrical design and technology, and on house.com. But he's usually reading Inspector Gamache novels or writing whatever comes into his head at languageoflight.blog. So, without further ado, David, it is over to you. Thank you very much.
Philip, thank you so much for having me. My only disappointment here is that we aren't listening to the jazz anymore from the beginning, which was, I was really grooving there. So that was like the best music ever to get set up for a webinar. So hopefully you're seeing Don't Do This on your screens right now. And I will dig into this, but it's a great honor and a privilege to be here today with all of you all around the world. That's fantastic. I love talking about light, so I make up my own job titles, which is something you get to do when you run a company. And I often go by the title Chief Evangelist of Light, which basically means I want to talk about light. I want to share light with as many people as I can. So Don't Do This, the webinar that I'm going to go into today, is really just another in a long series of attempts to fix a problem. In some ways, I think that's what designers do, right? We use creativity, we use knowledge to fix problems. And what I've come to think over the last few years is that we can deliver better light than at any other point in human history. We can do it better now than at any other point. And that's, makes it a great time to be a lighting designer or a lighting professional, because we're in this market that's rapidly evolving. We're doing things that, even our predecessors 20, 30 years ago couldn't even do. Like, it's an amazing time to be in the lighting industry. But when we get in our cars and drive home, lighting at home over the last 20 years is arguably getting worse instead of better. And we're going to go into that a little bit during this presentation. So what is the state of lighting and where are we and why is it getting worse instead of better? Well, I decided I would put the entire history of lighting in one slide because, why not, right? First of all, this was what the first lighting designers did. They built fires. That's our sort of our history there. Now, over time, we've evolved the technology we've used. Like we got into candles, and then at one point we realized that whale oil burned very cleanly, so we hunted them to the brink of extinction because it was a better source of light. Now, 130 years ago or so, 140 years ago or so, we entered the incandescent or the age of electric lighting. And we've been in that for that period of time. Now, that's changed, of course. We had some major technological advancements, or were they advancements? Maybe not so much, but we did shift towards more energy efficient light sources, first with compact fluorescent, and now with LEDs that come in every shape and size and form factor imaginable. And if you look at a graph of time and quality, like the quality of light has gradually been getting better, so that when the electric age came around, we were able to do light in new ways that were unimaginable before we had electric light. But then when we got into compact fluorescent, the quality of light in our homes especially took a step backwards. Yes, we saved energy, and that's very important for us to do. But in terms of the quality of light, it went down. And I think that's still true even with the advent of LEDs, especially for the ordinary average consumer, the average person who's out there living in a home. It should be like this, though, right? We should see an improvement in the quality of light because of what I said earlier. We can do better light than at any other point in human history. So why aren't we? Like, why is there a gap between where we could be in our homes and where we are now? I think lighting has gotten really complicated. It's very scientific. It's very technical. There's an artistic flair to it. Like, what we do as lighting professionals isn't easy for the average homeowner or the average consumer to do on their own. So they end up with bad lighting. Now, we would like them to have good lighting, but it costs a lot of money to hire me and my team to design lighting for a house, and we can only do so many houses a year. So there's really not, even if everyone could afford a lighting designer, there really aren't enough of us to go around. And of course, most people can't afford our services. So how do we improve things? We have to keep it simple. We have to make what we do easily accessible so that the average person out there can actually get better lighting without hiring us. And don't worry, we'll still have plenty of work to do, even when we democratize light. So one of the things I started doing a few years ago was blogging, just to explore, to give me a space to explore ideas that no one was paying me for, right? No, I don't make any money off the blog. It's just there so I have a space to think about things and think about light. And one of the series I did last year was called One Thing. And the One Thing series was just an exercise for me to say, okay, well, if I was doing a media room, or if I was doing a deck, or if I was doing a bedroom, and I could only recommend one idea for a homeowner to put into their home in a new construction situation, what would that one idea be? And I followed that with another series on a One Thing plugin. So if there was only one thing you could do to improve lighting in a given space, and you couldn't hire an electrical contractor, what would that be? So I put that series on. And this year, I started experimenting with a new one. And that new one is called Don't Do This. And now it's November, so I'm about 11 months in. I'm working on November's post after we end the webinar. But this is, again, it's just an exercise for me to look at, okay, let's take a bedroom, let's take a home office, let's take a kitchen, let's take the backyard, and let's make this as simple as possible and divide it in half and say the stuff on the left side of the screen, don't do that. The stuff on the right screen, on the right side of the screen, do this instead. And my hope is that by simplifying it, we can allow the average consumer or ordinary homeowners to get better lighting in their homes. And I'm excited to share it with you today because most of us, like if your career starts like my career, I spent 15, 20 years in commercial lighting before I moved into residential lighting. So I did, office spaces and doctors' offices and hospital lobbies and all those kinds of commercial and hospitality projects before I got into residential. What I'm hoping is that you will be able to take this, what I'm sharing with you today, and find a way to talk about light with your friends and your family and your neighbors and the people around you that allows you to help them with light in their homes more easily while you continue to do all the other cool things you will do with lighting. So, in keeping it simple, I think lighting design is really about having the right ideas or the right way to talk about light, having the right tools or paintbrushes, putting those in the right place or locations, and then using those things at the right time. And when you put all four of those together, you end up with happier homeowners. So these are the four sections that I want to dive into today. And the little location pin there, that's where we're going to spend most of the time in the don't do this. So I'm adapting for the webinar some of those blog posts. I think language is very important when we're talking to the average consumer, when we're talking to clients. The language we use can help them feel good about what decisions they need to make, feel informed about those decisions, and make the right decisions. So, of course, I have many projects where I have suggested some amazing lighting idea and the client says, I don't want to pay for that. And for the first 20 years or so, I was like, that's a problem with the client. The client is making a bad decision. And I've since come to realize that it's really all on me, right? If the client says, no, I don't want to pay for that, it's because I didn't give them a good enough reason to pay for that lighting solution. I didn't understand them, or I didn't communicate with them, or I didn't give them the tools they needed to make that decision. So I've started to change the way I talk about light with clients, and that has completely changed the outcomes. Think about it in this way. When I was first getting started, I was taught by my bosses that there were 3 layers of light that every space needed to be well designed, and those were task, ambient, accent. I still use task layers, ambient layers, and accent layers, but I don't use those terms when I'm talking to a client. And the reason for that is that task, ambient, and accent is a little bit like saying good architecture, good homes consist of 3 layers, 2x4s, a rain screen, and book-matched marble slabs. Now, while all 3 of those might be important in a beautiful home, 2x4s are things like, well, I guess I need them, but I don't want to see them. Same as task lighting. Rain screen. I don't even know what that does, but my architect tells me I need it, so I guess I need it, which is kind of like ambient. I don't even know what that does, says a normal consumer, but I guess if you tell me, maybe I need it. And book-matched marble slabs, the client's going to say, that sounds expensive, just like accent lighting. And so we've set up, by using these terms, we've set them up to say no to us. I think about it in different ways. I think about, and this language continues to evolve, but I think about it, bringing it back into how human vision works and how the human body works, and talking to our clients about what they see, right? And how light comes into their eyes. So we have our near field of vision, where we see with relative focus. We have a mid field of vision. And then, of course, we have our peripheral vision out around the sides of our vision. This is just the way the human body is built. Now, what does that have to do with lighting? I think most of us enjoy sunny days more than we enjoy a rainy day, unless we're in Southern California, where it's always sunny, and then we have the rainy days are the fun days, right? But for most of us, when we see the sun, it's like, wow, that's a better day. So what happens in a sunny day in terms of this peripheral, midfield, et cetera? I'm not going to talk to my clients about peripheral vision and midfield. I'm going to talk to them about something called the different zones of light. So that near field and midfield, I'm calling the comfort zone. That's one area of our vision. The glare zone, that's peripheral vision, because we're most sensitive to light in our peripheral vision. And the work zone, that's where our hands are, where we do things. And the safety zone, of course, is where we trip and fall. So outside on a sunny day, the sun, when it's overhead, is right there in our glare zone. So we put on a hat or a visor or something to block that light because it's so uncomfortable to us. And our eyes are even sunken back into our heads with a little shelf above them, right? Because that light isn't good for us. Ball players put, black underneath their eyes to block the reflection of that light on their cheekbones. It's uncomfortable. It's not great. So that's the glare zone. The comfort zone, however, is filled with soft, diffuse light coming through the sky, bouncing through clouds, bouncing off trees, bouncing off buildings, but coming into our eyes in a very soft, diffuse way. That's our comfort zone. Now, what does this have to do with lighting inside? Is in residential design, especially when you move into higher end residential design, the recessed downlight or pot light is the tool of choice. And basically what it does is it lights down, right? Down light, light down. I say these are great at lighting the floor. But what you see when you layer on top of this the glare zone is that you can see we're putting the brightest sources in the room. Still there? I just got an internet signal problem, but it looks like, are we back? Let me just make sure
You're back with us, David.
Okay, great. I just had a little warning that said slow signal. Okay, so you've got these spotlights right in the place where we are most sensitive to glare, right overhead. Now, we may not be paying attention to them, but because they're overhead, but most of us don't want to wear a hat inside our homes. So what do we need to do? To get light into that comfort zone, we need to bounce light off of things. We need to bounce light off of artwork or wall textures. We need to bounce light off of cabinetry or vertical surfaces. We need to bounce that light into our eyes. We need to bounce light off of the ceiling using indirect light, but not just indirect light, because that's just like a cloudy day. So now you can see that this person over here is going to get soft light bounced into their eyes through the comfort zone and is going to minimize the light in their glare zone by pushing these downlights out to the edges and bouncing that light off of the wall. Now the work zone, then, we've got to put light in there as well. I think light in the work zone is best when it's from below the eyes. So that's good lighting, good sunny day lighting. But wait a bit, what about nighttime? When we're at our homes, more often we're at home during the evening than we are during the day. So we need to pay attention to what our bodies need at night, not just what they need at day. So if you stop here, you're ignoring the fact that the sun goes down. Outside, what makes it nice? Well, the glare zone, super sensitive to light still. In the comfort zone, super dark, but maybe some stars, right? Maybe just a little bit of light in that zone. If you're in the magic hour, that's where the sunset happens, right? In that comfort zone, and we watch it. And then, of course, the safety zone, if we're going to be out at night, we want path lights. We want to be able to see. So if you've ever been in a beautifully illuminated garden and seen those little path lights down the sidewalk or whatnot, you can move through there very comfortably without glare in your eyes, without a major disruption to your sleep. So I call that the safety zone. The same thing is true inside. We use the same eyes. And you can tell your clients this. We use the same eyes outside as we use inside. And yes, the iris goes up and down and there are some changes, but the geometry of the eye stays the same. So moving inside, you might say, well, why don't we do path lighting inside? Whether that's step lights that we even use in hallways and in between rooms and all over the place, toe kick lighting, lighting under bars, etc. And for that soft bit of sunset or magic hour, you could use a little bit of light in that comfort zone, but maybe it's very different. So when we get into the location section of this, we're going to look at the glare zone. What's in the glare zone? How do we keep bright spots out of the glare zone? How do we get soft light into the comfort zone? How do we keep strong light in the work zone that doesn't have to come above and put glare in our eyes? And then how do we get light in the safety zone that allows us to move through our homes with comfort and ease at night without disrupting the rest of our sleep? We talk about this as the difference between lighting layout and lighting design. Lighting layout is circles on a plan, or 4 cans in a fan, that kind of design. So here you see just a nice bedroom with decent lighting. And when you look at it from a glare zone standpoint, you can see there's some pretty hot spots of glare here in that zone that we don't necessarily need. And if we're relying on this decorative fixture, it's also going to be a source of glare. When we look at the comfort zone, we see it's kind of dim there. It's not giving us a lot of soft bounce light into the space. It's not very interesting to look at. The work zone is maybe okay if you're sitting right next to the bed, and the safety zone has light because those lights overhead are putting light in that zone, but it's light coming from the wrong place. And you can see the lighting plan there being very nice, a 3x3 grid of pot lights with a decorative fixture in the middle. So what is a better option than this? A better option with lighting design looks and feels very different. So in that glare zone, you can see that in the middle here, we've eliminated all those fixtures, and we've pushed the fixtures out to the edges where they're going to bounce off the walls and do something more positive for us. So in the comfort zone, you can see there's all kinds of light happening in this zone now that's going to make us feel more comfortable. The work zone is still illuminated. In a bedroom, we don't have real high requirements for that usually, unless you're packing a suitcase. And the safety zone is catching some light as well. And off camera, there are some other ways to get that light we'll talk about later. But you can see what happened is that the lighting plan, like especially where the recessed downlights are, changed significantly from where it was in the beginning. It's no longer that nice, tidy grid of recessed downlights. And once we've done that, and we've changed the way we approach lighting in the space, we can also say, well, what about nighttime? We can shift the lighting in that room to really get us ready for sleep. So the first don't do this, the first don't and the first do this is to consider task ambient accent as our secret language, as the secret language of lighting designers. You can add to that IPRGCs and LEDs and CBCPs and all of the acronyms we use. Keep those on the left side of the screen. Use those when you're thinking about light, when you're talking to other lighting professionals. If you're talking to a homeowner or to a client who's not in the design profession, like not an architect, find a new language that works for you that conveys the value of light, not just what it is. Task ambient accent are just what it is. Keeping light out of the glare zone is a value. Keeping light in the comfort zone is a value. Keeping light in the safety zone is a value. It tells us why, not just what we're doing. So we're thinking about light in a different way. Let's talk about a new kit of tools. Light fixtures have evolved like crazy over the last few years, right? When I was getting started, I thought the future of lighting was compact fluorescent and fiber optics. Neither of those really play any significant role in the lighting industry today. However, I think as an industry, we've kind of duped our homeowners. We've tricked them into buying some lighting. So for example, the poster child of bad light is the fluorescent 2x4. Most people associate these with institutions and not positive institutions, right? Sitting through a very boring class or lecture, waiting for hours in a doctor's office. They're not really, we know we don't like them. Well, what happened with the LED age is that we figured out we could make them smaller. And we figured out we could also make them round. So we just made them smaller and round and called them disc lights or wafer lights or canless recessed lights, which don't have a can and they're not recessed. It's just clever marketing, but it's in essence the same thing as a fluorescent 2x4 with a little bit more glare. And what these do very effectively is light the air above your head and fill your eyes with glare. These lights, believe it or not, are the most common light fixtures used, at least in the United States, in new construction housing today. They're everywhere in the house. That's basically all they use besides a few decorative fixtures, a few pendants or chandeliers. And what we needed to do to talk to our clients about it is show them a picture of why that's not good lighting. On the left here, we have a disc light. And maybe it's $50. It's probably only $15, and those are US. On the right here, we have a performance light fixture. And if a client says, I want it bright, they might be tempted to choose this one on the left because it looks brighter. Now, we're in a 2-foot, gosh, I should speak metric, right? But we're in a small little phone booth of a square there on the left and on the right. So if you were lighting a phone booth, maybe that's the right light for a phone booth. But if you're lighting a kitchen counter that's 6 feet below the ceiling, then let's look at what happens 6 feet below the ceiling with these two fixtures. And we show this little video clip to our clients. It's been very, very powerful. I wish I'd spent more time making it, knowing how much we would use it. But on the left side, you can see that disc light, because of all of the science of light, right, and the inverse square law and all of those things and the distribution and the center beam candle power, none of which I'm ever going to talk to a client about. I'm just going to show them a picture how the one on the left isn't going to light their counter very well. And if they have a vaulted ceiling in their living room or great room that's 20 feet tall, it's not going to light their book or their couch or their game or anything very well. They need to be considering performance fixtures on the right. And we send our designers, when we hire a new designer, we send them out to a showcase home or some place to tour, and they tour homes and they bring back photographs like this of new construction, new homes. This photograph, the one on the left and the right, are from a $1 million condominium in Southern California. And they talk all about how design is important to them on their website, on the builder's website. But you can see they're using disc lights everywhere. And we call them blob lights because they put a little blob of light here above the door, a little blob of light above the artwork, a little blob of light in the corner. But unless you put your desk up here in the corner, 8 feet off the floor, it's horrible lighting everywhere else. And unless you want to stand on top of the sink to shave or apply makeup, like this is horrible lighting in a bathroom. And this right here is the state of lighting in most houses, and why I say lighting at home is getting worse instead of better. It's getting cheaper and more efficient, but it's getting worse for the humans who live in that place. So if we use different tools and we think about light in a different way, we need to be putting those lights in a different place. So how does lighting get done in most homes, at least in the United States? There's an electrical plan made for permit so that you can get a building permit. And then everyone ignores that plan typically. And we have what we call the electrical walkthrough, where the homeowner and the builder and the electrician and maybe an interior designer walk through the house room by room and say, what are the electrical needs for this room? Oh, well, I need an outlet over there for the vacuum cleaner. Okay, great. And then we force the electrician to become a lighting professional. And the electrician says, well, what do you want for lighting in this room? And the homeowner who has no idea says, I don't know. What would you recommend? And the electrician thinks, well, on the last house I did, I put 4 cans in a room about this size and nobody ever complained or sued me. So I think 4 cans is the right solution. And the homeowner who has no idea says, okay, that's great. And then they walk into the next room and it's a little bit bigger. Well, that should probably be about 6 cans. And that's the process for lighting at the luxury level, at the custom level most of the time. And that's really unfair to ask an electrician to become a lighting professional. So that brings us to Don't Do This, the series of blog posts that I'm using as the basis for today's presentation, where I thought, let me just put it out there. Here's some things not to do, and here's some things to do. Now, as lighting professionals, you will find these as gross oversimplifications, right? You will find them as saying, oh, now, wait a minute. Of course, David, I'm thinking, I see that you say don't do this, but in such situation X, Y, and Z, and you're probably right. These are oversimplified, and every rule that, I come up with is made to be broken. But it's made to be broken by a qualified professional like you, not by a homeowner who doesn't know anything. because chances are if they break the rules, they're going to break them in ways that don't actually work well for them. So that's why I oversimplify things. Let me give you an example. Here's a living room. Here's and it's a vaulted, tall ceiling, double height. We see these in a lot of the custom residential market here. It's a lofted space with a cathedral or sloped ceiling. And on the left here, I've got the don't do these solutions. And on the right, I've got the please do what you see on the right. And let's look at it in terms of that language that we looked at earlier in terms of glare zone, for example. So in the don't side, in the glare zone, we've got disc lights. Those are horrible. You could put recessed downlights up here and they would also be in the glare zone. Recessed lights that are lighting up here at the top of the fireplace where nobody really sees, but not carrying light down to where people are. And maybe some, super bright chandeliers because we're relying on them to light the space. So you've got the glare zone filled with glare here. But on the flip side here, maybe we're able to dim these down. Maybe we're bouncing light off of the ceiling, bouncing light up inside of these windows. We're eliminating that direct light down, and we're just filling that zone with soft light. That soft light carries into the comfort zone as well. You can see we're lighting artwork, we're lighting bookshelves. I used to light bookshelves because it looked cool, and I used to justify it because then you could see the books. But you're going to be able to see the books anyway, right? If there's enough light in the room, you're going to be able to see the books. So are we just lighting bookshelves because it looks cool? Well, if we think about the comfort zone and what happens when the windows go dark because the sun is down, that's where we're used to getting this nice soft light. If that's where the bookshelves are, why not bounce light off of those books and get the soft light our bodies want? Oh, and by the way, it also looks cool. So that becomes a byproduct of what you might call human-centric or human-focused lighting. So you'll see there's a lot of soft sources in this zone right here. Whereas over on the right, what are we doing? We're putting light on top of the bookcase. Yes, that is going to give us a little soft light, but it's leaving this area dark. Puck lights, little puck lights up inside of a bookcase like this are going to be shining down in your eyes when you look up, when you look up. So they're usually less than functional. And you can see the lampshade here is a dark lampshade, meaning it's going to put light, on your book, and it's going to put light up, but in that comfort zone, it's leaving you in the dark. So that's the difference here. The work zone in the living room, lamps are you can right a lot of wrongs in residential lighting with just the right amount of lamps. So consider that as your primary work zone lighting. But you can see here that the shade then is meaning that all of that light, if the shade is properly is at the proper height, all of that light is coming out below our eyes, hitting the book, hitting the knitting, whatever it is that we're doing with our hands in that work zone, and not putting glare into us the rest of the place. And the safety zone here, we've got light in surprising places. Recessed step lights in a living room? Yeah, we do it. Toe kick lighting? Sure. Like when you are able to put light down there, you can walk from your garage where the car is, where the automobile is, to your master, to your bedroom. You can go from point A to point B without turning on all the overhead lights and feel very comfortable and welcomed and relaxed and not worried about what you're going to stub your toe on if you have lighting in that safety zone. So that's an approach, right? Looking at these different zones and don't do this. And we can apply that to virtually every room of the house. But as you know, different rooms have different tasks. We do different things in those different rooms. So the solutions are often a little bit different. In a kitchen, for example, the glare zone, recessed lighting over the aisle where you stand is going to put that light right in your glare zone. Pushing that light out to the cabinets is going to light the countertop better. It's going to light the cabinetry better. It's going to light what's inside the cabinetry better. And it's going to reduce the amount of light in the glare zone. In the comfort zone here at our eye level, we've got a fixture here with bare light bulbs. And I would say banish the bare light bulbs. Just like don't have them. Right. Yes, they look beautiful if you have like 100 of them at, at 5% intensity. But if you're doing a decorative fixture like this, it's not going to give you much functional light if it's a bare bulb pointed at the ceiling. So in this case, a soft shade, just like a soft shade on a lamp in a living room, is going to do a significantly better job for you in that comfort zone. The work zone, of course, task lighting under cabinets. Light is going to come from above here in this case, but you can pretty much light that work surface if there's an upper cabinet just with good, strong under cabinet lighting located in the right place. If it's way at the back, it may not actually give you much light where your fingers and knives are out at the front. And you can see here we do have a recessed downlight over the island to push light down to the countertop here. So sometimes you will need to put recessed lights in to push light down to that countertop. And then down in the safety zone, that's going to be light in toe kicks. It's going to be light underneath the bar tops. And by the way, like just because it's there as safety, you're like, well, am I really going to trip and fall if I don't have toe kick lighting or if I don't have lighting underneath the bar? Probably not, as long as you have all those overhead lights on. But there's two reasons to do it anyway. One is so that at nighttime, you don't have to have all those overhead lights on, which are potentially going to be disruptive to your sleep. So it would be nice to have lights that are down low. And second of all, humans are motivated by fear, right? We spend a lot of our energy in some kind of fear. And whether or not we are conscious of it, when you go up to sit at an island at a countertop, if there's light underneath it, you will have less fear about putting your feet in that dark spot. Now, we may never pay attention to that. We may never even realize it's happening. But when we add the light, we will feel more comfortable in that place, even if it's not strictly necessary. So again, you can see how dividing into these zones and then finding solutions in those zones makes it possible for us to look at a kitchen or look at different places in a kitchen and evaluate what to do and what not to do. And you can see, misaligned downlights aren't going to be that great, whereas aligning them with the cabinets are good. In the comfort zone, lighting, little puck lights in the top of glass front cabinets. Again, if you're standing there at the countertop, it's a source of glare in your glare zone pointed at your face. If it's on the sides of the cabinets pointing inwards, kind of at the front of the cabinets pointing backwards, it's going to bounce off of all of that stuff and feel much more comfortable in your eyes. Even floating shelves, for example, light that's pointed down is going to be in your eyes. Light that's pointed up is going to be much more comfortable and much softer for you. So you can apply those techniques. Work zone, a linear LED is going to be a lot better than a little puck light, which is going to leave a lot more shadows. There are probably in these blog posts, several dozen different things to do or not do. And in fact, those blog posts, some of them get way, way, way too long, right? The challenge with no editor is that I can write whatever I want and no one tells me not to. But as I write these things over and over again, it's like, there's got to be a better way to do this. There has to be a simpler way to do this. So like I've tried different things throughout the year, different methods of writing this out, different methods of calling out the differences, et cetera. And I still don't feel like I've got it perfect, right? I still feel like there's a more simple way to do this for an average client. I even do plan views in there so that you can see from a plan view, like most people will only see a lighting plan. They'll never see 3D renderings or illustrations or sketches or those things. When you go into residential market, like that's not done for lighting very often, only for very, very, select few with significant resources. So having these basic plans, you can point out how these lights are nicely laid out, but lighting the wrong thing. And these lights are, this ceiling plan looks a lot messier but it's lighting the right things and putting the lights in the right place at the right time. So we try to develop little diagrams, for example, that just say, hey, look, when you're there, you're creating a shadow on the countertop that you're trying to use. That light needs to be there, and you need a light there. We also do illustrations, renderings, where we have good lighting and bad lighting. So here's that, 3x3 grid of downlights with the middle replaced by pendants. And then we can say, oh, that's not really well lit. What about this instead? What's the difference? The difference is we're using different lights in different places doing different things before, right? And after. And you can see how that comfort zone is much more filled with light. The safety zone is more filled with light. And it ends up being just a more enjoyable experience. And we can go through, in essence, every room of the house this way. We can say, oh, look at all these downlights in the dining room in the glare zone. That's not a good thing, is it? What if we bounce light up off of the ceiling instead? Well, that would be more, and bounce light off of the art. That would be more comfortable. What is this chandelier with bright sources of light, visible sources of light are going to be glary? What about a shaded one that softens the light for us? So we can look at modern dining rooms and say, wow, these little stick fixtures that hang above modern dining room tables, they're really cool. They're really minimal, really clean. I love the look of them, but the quality of light that comes out of them is not easy on our eyes. It's not lighting our faces or the faces of the loved ones around us. So we can say, if you want better lighting, try something that's larger and has a soft diffuser around it. If you want, better lighting in, here's just a comparison between two different fixtures. One where the light fixture is right at the light source is right at the surface, so you're going to see glare, and one where it's recessed inside, where you're not going to see glare. Here's shelves lit from above. So we've got linear tape light in the bottom of each shelf. Well, when you're here sitting at this table, you're going to be looking up into those light sources, which is uncomfortable. Whereas this person on this side looking over here, that light is going to be shielded and softly reflected into their eyes. And the plans look different, right? The lighting plans look very different. Bedrooms are the same. You can see kind of the similar approach to that sloped great room or sloped living room. A bunch of recessed downlights in there in the glare zone, not so great. In the comfort zone, soft lampshades, light on artwork, bouncing light off of ceiling features. That's going to make this space feel more comfortable. In the work zone, this little lamp is not going to light the book. Right? Not going to light it well, as you can see from kind of the way the light comes out of it. This larger lampshade is going to get more light over here to where the book is. So we're paying attention to the geometry of light, but basing it off of how are humans going to use that space. And we try to get into these posts as well on the don't do this, that it's about where the fixtures go, but it's also about what fixtures you choose. So for example, here in the safety zone, we have 2 night lights. This is a typical night light that will, plug in, and it has a little bulb or a little LED or whatever, and it shines light up into your face, which, like, who wants that? Anyone who goes camping outside knows you don't shine your flashlight at the face of somebody else. You shine it at the ground. Same is true here with this fixture, shining the light down at the ground. So we've got that options in every single space of the house. So you can start to see now, as we look at multiple rooms, there are themes here, right? There are themes of not having bright lights on the ceiling shining in your face or shining straight down. There are themes of, so not shining down, not shining down. There are themes of bouncing light off of walls, bouncing light off of books. There's themes of having softly illuminated shades in the spaces. Like those go through whether it's a traditional bedroom or a modern bedroom, bouncing light off the ceiling, bouncing light off the wall from this hidden LED, bouncing light off the floor, from below our eyes, having soft lampshades in the space, avoiding recessed downlights and, pretty light fixtures that don't do anything. There's a term that some people use that say lighting is the jewelry of the home. And when I first heard that term, I got really mad because I thought jewelry is what? It's expensive. Yeah, okay, lighting can be expensive too. Jewelry is beautiful. Yeah, okay, lighting can be beautiful as well. Jewelry is also useless. And I was like, no, wait a minute. I don't want useless lighting. Like, I don't think lighting is useless. So why are you telling me lighting is useless? Well, I tell you what, there is some fixtures out there that are useless, right? They're beautiful and expensive, but they don't actually give us much usable light. Now I'm a little softer on that when I say, fine, if you want jewelry in the home that looks like a light fixture, have jewelry in the light go ahead, spend your money on that. But allow me to put in the other light fixtures that are going to be like the socks of your home, hidden and comfortable, and you're going to use them every day rather than the jewelry that is expensive and just shiny. So, you can see just the difference between practical and maybe less functional. And in a bedroom, we're gonna let me just show this diagram where 4 cans and a fan I mentioned earlier. This is how most custom homes are laid out. We see it every single day of the week. And, it doesn't matter how nice the bedroom is. If you've got 4 cans and a fan, you are in essence putting lighting in like a gas station, a filling station. That's how they lay out their lighting at the pumps. It's the same way. So what do? We say, we'd like that room to feel more comfortable. Watch the rendering as we change the way we think about comfort zone and glare zone and safety zone and all of those pieces. And it looks a lot more comfortable. But of course, that lighting plan on the left cannot achieve the results on the right. So you have to show people the option. Okay, if we want that, we're going to need a different way to lay out the lighting in your room. And we've finally, spent the time and energy to make these renderings of before and after so that we could show clients the difference, because they say, wait, the lights don't line up. I'm like, you're right, they don't line up. But that's okay, because in most rooms of the house, you don't spend your time laying down staring at the ceiling. And even in the bedroom, when you do lay down and stare at the ceiling, you turn the lights off. So how important is it for them to be in straight rows? And that, I think, in terms of do's and don'ts, I could go on for days in terms of like what's a nice way to light a tub. Well, you can hang a chandelier over it so you can electrocute yourself when you grab it, or you can put a downlight in it so when you're trying to relax in the tub, you've got an interrogation spotlight in it. Or you can do some soft lighting, and some electric candles, if you will, so you can have that candlelit relaxing bath. What about around the mirror? Well, you can put bright lights up here that will cast shadows and make you look old and wrinkly like I do. Or you can put light on both sides of the mirror or all the way around the mirror so that you get soft light on your face so that you look, it's easier to shave and it's easier to do grooming and makeup and those sorts of things. And you're also going to look better, right? So who doesn't want that in their mirror when they see in the morning? Same is true of office. Again, you see soft light bouncing off of surfaces, off of ceilings, off of books, off of artwork, softer lampshades, light down low for us to navigate. And this comes into, let me just show this one. This comes into Zoom and presentations and webinars and all of the live conversation that we have via our computers nowadays. Like, we do this a lot. That task light that illuminates your desk kind of makes you look creepy. So, if I turn off all of the soft light in my office, it's a very different look on my face. I do have some daylight, but I'm kind of get like bad shadows and my background's too bright, etc. So think about in terms of just having on your desk, not only does this kind of lighting make the whole room feel more comfortable, it's actually going to make you look better on camera. And that's my secret, right? Is that I know lighting. So there's some options. And the difference between having recessed downlights that light the floor and maybe a few accent lights here and there, and having light that fills that comfort zone around you may mean that you're trying some things you haven't tried before, like hanging pendants in the corner of the room to chase the shadows away and give you some glow inside the house. Now, inside the house is a little bit different than outside the house, right? We looked at daytime and nighttime earlier, and I think outside, the best light for the environment is no light, right? Total darkness is the best kind of light if you're concerned about the planet. What we are putting on our houses is pretty much the opposite. Brass and glass is a term I've heard used, coach house lanterns, just because it's like, well, we want something that looks historical. And I'm like, look, if the folks in the 1800s could have had better light, or the 1700s could have had better lighting, they would have had better lighting. It's just that was the best they could do, is have a candle protected by glass so it wouldn't blow out, right? Why we're still doing that makes no sense to me, because most of that light now is electric light. We're making a lot more of it, and it's just going into space. It's waste. It's a waste of money, and it's destroying the environment. So if we're trying to find something in between, then let's at least use lights that point down and shield our eyes and shield the skies to keep light out of the space. So the don't do this applies here as well, but in this case, it's point it down, put a shade on it, keep it out of your eyes, do as much as you can to make that light low down and shielded rather than shining up at the sky. And that's whether that's a sort of more modern home or whether a traditional home. There's ways to not just have a bunch of spotlights pointing up or a bunch of spotlights pointing in your eyes, but actually getting fixtures that just give you a little bit of a glow, or a little bit of glow that's caught by a cornice, or a light on the steps so that you feel comfortable. And that's true in the backyard too. Are you illuminating your yard so that when you look out, you see a whole bunch of LED lights? Or are you illuminating your yard so when you look out, you see trees and bushes and paths and shrubs and the things that make outside better than inside, or different than inside? So again, shield it, point it down, point it away from your eyes, keep it out of the skies, and minimize the waste. And aggregate for us, this even becomes an issue of justice and equity, is that most of the time, if you've got a neighborhood that has really good lighting and dark sky requirements, you're probably in a very high income bracket. And if you've got one that's filled with pollution, light pollution and light trespass and industrial lighting that's just blasting out everywhere, you're probably in a lower income neighborhood. So we're actually seeing now the evolution of light and justice as a conversation of saying, hey, we're actually contributing to some wrongs in society. It's time to fix that. So as I wrap up here, we looked at a bunch of different ways to use light, a different way to think about light, and maybe some different fixtures. A new way to use light is really just a simplified way to talk to clients and talk to customers about what we can do to support the human through changing lighting over the course of day. So if this is the history of lighting design, we missed one important phase of light, and that was the natural one, right? Which, as we know, our bodies are built for natural light, not for artificial light. And over this timeline of like, okay, well, here's, the quality of light went up for incandescent and came back down for compact fluorescent. And now just because we're using disc lights is even worse in LED, our access to natural light over the course, and you could put darkness on the same plot, has gone down. Right? The more electric light we use, the less we need natural light. And so what we've trained our clients and our customers to do is to turn on the lights and turn off the lights and have the same white light all day, every day, rather than having bright light and dim light and shifting color temperatures over the course of the day. So I share these graphics with you because I know you're all probably believers in this already, but this is just another way to talk to clients about what our ancestors got in terms of natural light. In terms of intensity, they got very little light and then they got a ton of light, and it shifted color temperature over the course of the day. And if you live in a tent or work outside, that's still what you get. Now, 3000 degrees Kelvin, like what is that? That's one kind of light. And if we say you need fixed 3000 degrees Kelvin white light, we're saying you don't need any of this. And in terms of intensity, we're saying, you know what, you don't even need that intensity either. Let's just give you this kind of twilight state. And maybe you get a little bit more light when you drive to work, and maybe you get a little bit more light if you take a lunch break outside, and a little bit more as you drive home. But this is what we're experiencing today, and it's all fixed white light. And we show homeowners this photograph, and we say, this is 3000 degrees Kelvin. Isn't it a beautiful sunset? And you think, well, there's something missing here. What's missing here is dynamics and change and color temperature. So I like to say that 3000 degrees Kelvin or 3500 degrees Kelvin or 4000 degrees Kelvin or whatever it is that you use is the right color temperature of light for several minutes in the morning and several minutes in the afternoon. And the rest of the day, it's the wrong color temperature of light. And what do we really want in a vibrant space? Well, we kind of want all of those color temperatures of light. So developing renderings that say, oh, yeah, I don't want that yellow light during the day. That's ugly. Okay, well, let's get white light. Let's get that more crisp and cool. So that's, better for your island, your beachfront property. But oh gosh, look what happens at night when you use that same color temperature. It's not comfortable anymore. It's harsh and cold. So we need to shift that as the sun shifts, just like sunset, so that we can get to that magical evening. And that means that over the course of the day, we're using light that changes. And so without really getting into circadian rhythm or talking to a client specifically about color temperatures, we can convince them to make better choices about light if we use the right words, the right graphics, and the right terminology. So putting it all together for a happy homeowner, for the et cetera, to put it all together, we looked at different zones of light: glare zone, comfort zone, work zone, and safety zone, instead of using task ambient accent to talk to them. We also looked at the different fixtures, right? The disc light, which is the ubiquitous in new home construction, and performance lights that are actually going to do something for that house. And we looked at some plan and section views where we applied those principles and said, well, where would you put lights and where would you not put lights? And then over the course of the day, how would we change them? So that is what I wanted to share with you today in terms of don't do this about lighting. If you're interested in that blog series, the languageoflight.blog is the blog for that. And you can search by series and find those articles. And I would be thrilled to get feedback to know if you have any suggestions on how to make this even more simple, how to make it even more straightforward for a client or a consumer or a customer, so that we can help them make better decisions. What we've seen in our work over and over again is that when we give the clients the right information in the right way, they make the right decision. But if we give them the right information in the wrong way, they may not make the decision that we think they should make. And of course, if we give them the wrong information, we hope they don't make the wrong decision. So, Philip, I'll turn it back over to you. But I want to thank everybody again for letting me come and chat with you today.
And finally, we're sure that you found this webinar very interesting, because I certainly did after 53 years in the lighting business. So it's given me, and I'm sure you, a fresh look at how to approach residential lighting. Thank you, David. It was extremely interesting, insightful, inspirational, and for giving us your valuable time for this time here this evening.
Philip, it's been an honor. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to all of you who've attended. It's been great having you with us. Many of you we've seen at all our previous webinars. So take care, and we wish you and bid you Good night. Good night, David.
Good night, Philip.
Or good afternoon to you.
Morning still.
Still morning. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.